This is Lisa Tucker, host of The Book Cover, which showcases local literary personalities. So listen to The Book Cover on the Borderline. And remember, don't judge a book by its cover. Hi, you're listening to The Book Cover on the Borderline. I'm Lisa Tucker, and today I have, thankfully, another publisher in the house. Hi, ALEISHA Parr.
Hi, Lisa. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you. So, ALEISHA is the publisher, editor, boss at Type A Media. And I'm so happy to say that we've got 2 publishing houses in Sault Ste. Marie.
Isn't that exciting? I'm thrilled. When I first moved back here, I thought there is such a wealth of creativity and so much is going on here at the smaller scale.
Yes.
And we're just brimming with it. We're overflowing. And this was just before COVID. And there were no outlets for it here. And now all of a sudden, look at us here. There's Brian, there's Type A Media coming up. Everything is just... wow, there's so many opportunities.
Right,
now.
and you say, we're a wealth of creativity. So this is my 125th episode. So, and only a handful of repeats.
Wow.
That's how many writers we have in Sault Ste. Marie. And not just writers.
Yeah.
That's not counting, visual artists or musicians or any of the other arts that we have. So we're very, very rich in talent and skill and all that other wonderful stuff.
And that's just published writers. There are so many writers here that are too nervous yet to call themselves writers, they have so much work put aside. Yeah. It's just waiting to be shared.
Yeah,
Their
and
voices
I love that.
need to be heard.
I love that. So you have a very interesting, origin story. It's a very interesting origin story because it kind of started when a lot of things stopped.
That's true.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your origin story at Type A Media.
Ooh, all right. Well, I was born and raised here in Sault Ste. Marie, and I moved away for university, went to Toronto, and spent most of my adult life there.
For what did you take it?
I went into theater, actually.
Okay.
I love theater because it was a fun art for me, but it was the one, and I was also interested in psychology, so that was my minor, and cultural studies. And I went to York University, and I loved theater because it combined all of the other arts into one moment in time in a space. It's like listening to a record, It's recording that moment in time. And for me, that was just thrilling to be able to explore human nature, why we do what we do, our motivation, all of that, in this moment in shared time, in this dark space. It's thrilling to me. So I've always been involved in all of the other arts. I've done visual arts, I do photography, I've written, directed all sorts of things. I've been in galleries, all different sorts of things. But for me, writing was always my passion. And primarily, I found that I love to do the arts myself. It's just what pours out of me when I, can't stop myself.
Right.
But I mostly love helping other people to find their arts. That's why I started my business in Toronto, The Art Within, because everyone has that within them, right? And I saw that potential. I'm also a life coach. So that's just sort of hand in hand.
I always say I need a life coach, but don't have one.
Well, now you have me.
Mostly when I'm imbibed too many... I need a life coach then. But anyway, we digress.
Give me a call.
Yeah.
We got lots to chat
about.
So for me, when I moved back here, I hadn't expected to move back, but I brought my family. And I thought it was going to be a temporary stopover until I moved back to Toronto because my family was here still. So I came back thinking, I'll sort of regroup and take a trip down to Toronto, get things started, and sort of use this as my base. Then COVID hit. I literally had just gone to Toronto to speak. I had some work published of my own, and I was working in that aspect. And I went to Toronto to perform at this a live event. And when I came back, my friend and I, a realtor, we sat at this little pub and we drew it on a napkin, my 5-year plan for moving back and starting things back up again in Toronto. And then on the airplane ride home, that's when they were like, I don't know if you can make it home. Everything's shut down, and COVID had hit in a big way here. And so I came back, I made it back to the Soo and had to regroup again. And I thought, well, everything's shutting down. I was at home, single mom of 2. And so I was doing the homeschool thing, the virtual, all of that.
I was just going to say, homeschool, nobody got anything done if they had kids in homeschool.
It was interesting. It was I have a background, also, I dabble in all the things. I have a background in teaching as well.
Wow.
So
you're like a Jill of all trades.
I truly, truly am. That's sort of my niche, I think, is being able to do all the things. But yeah, the backside of things. So I help to push everyone up on their one thing, but I do all the little things in the background.
Yeah. And we need that.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I think that's really my strongest skill is being able to see that in others and to help them to realize their own potential. So I came back here and I thought, well, what am I going to do that can keep me at home? Because the plan was always to be at home with my kids. They come first no matter what.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to be able to stay at home, but I didn't want to lose my passion. I've always, throughout all of my years, I supported myself in Toronto through university, all of that. And I did it always sticking to what I was passionate about. I never took a job that wasn't in alignment with my passions. So I didn't want to stop now. And I thought, well, how do I do that here in the Soo? I don't know, the reason why I left the Soo was because I didn't see those opportunities here, but that was so much long ago. And so I started getting involved. There was a writers group at the library. That's where I ran into Sarah.
Yeah.
And we were talking about publishing and all of that. And I thought, that's really where I'm passionate about. And I met so many other little creative, niche groups in town. And I thought, these are really stories that need to be heard. And I was publishing my own work, but I felt like I had put out a book of my own about my experiences as a survivor of domestic violence. And that book was published by a small publisher in the States. And I thought that was the closure that I needed. I've told that story. It was about moving on and learning to live beyond that, starting my life again. And so I thought, well, I don't really need my voice to be elevated right now. I feel like there was so much going on at the time, during COVID, where I felt like there were all of these stories of people who had been marginalized, people who didn't have the opportunities that I had had or that I'd found in Toronto or elsewhere. And I felt like this was the time for those voices to be uplifted, not mine. I didn't have that much to say, really. I'd said it. I would
said
put it
what
out
you
there.
wanted to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now you want others to be able to say what they need to say.
Exactly. And be heard.
Yeah.
Because they're saying it. There's lots of people. It's not like I needed to speak for them. They are saying it. But it needs to be amplified.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I have lots of time on my hand. And everybody, we're probably all going to fail right now anyway, just by the nature of being stuck at home. So can't really failing.
Right?
Let's just do this.
Yes.
Let's do what I'm passionate about. Do what I feel like I can, if I'm at home anyway. And it was very, started in my basement. And started gathering different materials and equipment and supplies and watching videos online, learning the processes and techniques, because I make all the books myself. So
this is one I want to touch on too, because when we met at Authorpalooza at the library,
Fabulous
and
event.
you sort of kind of offhanded said, yes, I make all the books myself. And I'm like, you mean you print the books? And you're like, no, I actually put them together.
I do.
So please explain this. Like, you actually make the books.
I make the books.
Yes.
I start from the beginning to end, sourcing the materials, getting everyone involved, doing the editing, all of the behind the scenes work, and just the creative process. But then I print the books, I cut the papers, I glue the papers. If they're the hardcover bounds, I do perfect bound with the glue. But I also do hardcover stitched books where I hand sew the books in my living room with my kids.
That's
I make
crazy.
the covers, I design all of the artwork, I do all the layout, all the text side of things, everything from, I when we did Isolated together during COVID, that was our first book that we put out. It was an anthology of, I think, 17 different local authors and artists who were just here during the time of COVID, and we were all experiencing the same and different sorts of things. So I felt that was a great opportunity to just sort of show everybody that even though we were feeling so separate at the time, we all had these shared experiences too, that we could bond together, even though we felt like we didn't have the space to do that.
Right.
And so there I was, crocheting the little the little book covers to them, and I made little paper masks as bookmarks, and that we included with all of the books. I 3D printed. I briefly, at the beginning of it, I started 3D printing all of the face masks, like actual masks to give out as PPE for people during COVID for essential workers. And I was doing everything that I could, because why not? Like, that's what we do in these communities, right?
Yeah.
That's our strongest suit.
Yes. Okay, so we you touched on, there's so many things.
So many things.
You say so many things, and I have to remember what you said and go back. So you mentioned Isolated Together. Now, This is an anthology?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, and how did that, what was the idea that popped into your head that sparked, hey, I'm going to collect writers during this weird time in our history, and I'm going to put it in a book?
Well, I'm a bit of a hoarder. No. I hoard creative ideas.
Right.
And really, like I said, it was just seeing that, we were really fortunate, because I said I was planning on moving back to Toronto, and then COVID hit, and I was, okay, I'll temporarily stay here a little bit longer, and then COVID really hit, and I said, okay, I'll stay here quite a while longer, and started reassessing my future plans.
Yeah.
And
you weren't alone in that. I'm sure there are many people that had to reassess.
I know so many people who have come here now during the time of COVID,
yeah.
From larger cities and have come back to our roots here, and we're all settling in. We're buying houses. We're bringing up our families.
We were just talking before we started recording. I was talking with one of the other authors, and she was saying she drives 15 minutes to work, and she's mad because it takes 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Right? But
there's not enough time to really go into that mindset.
In Toronto,
yes.
15 minutes, you won't drive anywhere in 15 minutes.
No, an hour no matter where you go.
Right.
Yeah. And you have that time where you're not driving, you're sitting in transit somewhere, and you have that freedom to be on your laptop or think or get inspiration, seeing other people around you. That's work time. That's creative time.
Yes.
That's the juices flowing time.
That is right. That is correct. Okay, so you're here in the Soo. You're going to stay in the Soo now because the whole world shut down.
Yeah. And I was toying with different ideas. I originally thought that I would start a literary magazine. I thought that was a nice, easy thing that I could do. That's not too big of a plan. Mm-hmm. And because I was meeting all of these really creative people, and I felt like they had so many great stories to be told, and they don't have that platform here. Yeah. They're starting to with many more opportunities now.
Yes.
But at the time, there really wasn't anything coming out of it most places.
Right.
And we didn't have the ability to go to a bigger city and to access publishers. And there's such a wait time in getting things out. A lot of people here, we're taking care of our elderly parents, we're taking care of our kids, we're taking care of our land. There are all of these things, these obligations that are holding us here, on top of the other things that oppress and marginalize people in other communities as well. So we have, and we feel that sense that we are isolated. We have that sense that, we don't really get to connect with as many people as you do in a larger city where you see, oh, they are just like me.
Yeah.
We don't have those many opportunities to mingle.
Well, it's like 7 to 8 hours to a major center.
Exactly.
And so we are isolated in that fact.
It's a limited pool of people that you get to meet to see, oh, they do have those shared experiences that I have. And I wanted people to know, especially at this time when people were having such a hard time connecting, that they weren't so alone, that they did have valid experiences and feelings and thoughts and fears and insecurities and dreams and hopes and all of the good and the bad. And so that's always been our focus, is to have a real, honest, shared experience opportunity where people can talk about, yes, we have, these happy moments, we're celebrating things like that, but we can also be real about, this is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard, and I want you to know that this is hard, and I'm going through this and it's hard, and you're going through this maybe too and it's hard, and we'll go through this, you know. And I think that we're all stronger by lifting our own voices, because it helps to lift others as well.
Absolutely.
So that's how Isolated Together started. Okay. I put out a call. So
it started as a magazine.
The idea started as a magazine, and then immediately once I got into it, I thought, this is bigger. This has to be big. Let's just do this. If I'm going to, start something, I might as well start something.
Yeah.
So I decided to just put out the call and do a book. I did all the research. I had lots of time on my hands, and started the press.
Wow. Yeah. And when you put the word out, what did you ask for? Did you ask for specifically COVID stories?
Not specifically COVID, but about the experience of being isolated during this time of COVID. So it could be in relation to COVID, but it didn't need to be. It could be, I wanted meditations on what it was like to be in a community such as this, to have a life such as this, to have these experiences from a perspective that isn't always heard on a larger stage.
Right. So it's sort of special to Northern Ontario.
Exactly. Our calls are always open to anybody, but we prioritize people who have a connection here with Northern Ontario, whether it be that they were born and raised here, that they live here currently, that they have family here, that they travel here every year. We want to showcase perspectives that will resonate with people who are in our audience. One of the main aspects of that is that I like to say we're intentionally small.
Okay.
So there are lots of opportunities for publishing right now, like what Brian Davies is doing with Dagona. That's amazing. That are for like a larger stage. He's really bringing our voices out there, and that's so incredible. Yeah. My specialty is that we're niche, we're small, we're intentionally small. So I make the books. I have a capacity that I can do, right?
Right. How do you?
I just do. I don't question it.
How many Isolated Together books did you?
We did a run of 1,000.
So you put together?
Yes.
From scratch.
Of the perfect.
1,000 books.
Yes. More than that, way more than that, because there was a lot of trial and error. It was my first time doing it, and I had to order equipment online and hope that it got here during the time of COVID.
Form.
It is. It's an art and it's a science, and the science kind of failed me at first. The first run of the books, I did all of the books, and then I sent them out. We had great sales. We shipped them out. We did our virtual launch, and when we shipped, it was the dead of winter in northern Ontario, and the glue that I had ordered online that other people use with no problem cracked in the cold.
Oh, wow.
So we had all of these books shipped out that were cracked, the spines were cracking. And so I said, well, keep them, I'll start all over again. So I had to start the entire process again and learn different techniques, and I had to invest in different equipment and all of that so that the glue that I was using would not crack in the dead of winter shipping up far north.
Oh my! I never.
So I redid them.
Right?
And,
you never
it's a
think
learning
about
process.
That. Yeah,
absolutely.
And,
but now I know.
Yeah, and now you know. How was Isolated Together received?
It was great.
Yeah.
We had a launch event. We still have people asking to buy the book. I was just out today promoting the new book that we have coming out.
Yes.
And people were saying, "Oh, yes, I remember Isolated Together." So it's still trickling on, and people are passing it around, and people are sharing stories from it. I'm still in touch with most of the authors. Some of them have resubmitted to this new book coming out, and I think that it really helped people. I mean, people from Southern Ontario were ordering it from us even.
Oh,
so
wow.
it extended beyond. We had all
Yes.
online sales, right?
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, because the world was closed.
Exactly.
I'm sorry,
exactly.
we're closed. Yeah.
And when it was closed, one of the things that was most striking was because just before that, people were saying, "Oh, there's not really much value in the arts." People didn't want to pay for the arts. They didn't want to, they thought there isn't really that much value here. We should just all get this,
Yeah.
During the time of COVID, we were all stuck at home. What did we turn to? We were buying books at a much greater rate. We were going to, watching theater online, all of the things that like Tova was doing with Fringe. There was so much going on that people were just so happy to have, and we were finding our truer and best selves at that time. I think
I think there are
caused a huge shift. That
yes,
we're
and I
still
think
riding.
that is one of the positives that came out. People found
Absolutely.
their creativity and art that they maybe never would have taken the time.
Definitely.
You look at people like Dr. Graham Elder. He's an orthopedic surgeon.
Yeah.
He hasn't had 2 weeks off probably since high school. And he had 2-3 weeks off, whatever it was, that the surgeries were shut down. So he wrote a book.
If given the opportunity. Most of the people that submit work to me are people that say, "Oh, I don't know if I could write, but I have this idea in my head." And who doesn't have this idea in their head? And they just were never given that opportunity. They were never given that platform. And so most of the work that we've been publishing is work from people that would otherwise never be heard on this stage.
Yeah.
And that's thrilling to me. That's what I live for, that moment of seeing somebody be heard, be confident to speak out loud.
And because you say you're intentionally small,
Yes.
it's a little bit less intimidating for, and I always say the humble writer, because Canadian writers,
Oh, yes.
we hide under rocks.
Yep.
We don't, blare our horn and say, "I'm a writer, look at me, I've done this, blah, blah, blah." 90% of us
Yep.
hide under a rock with our manuscripts and don't tell anybody.
We write for the sake of writing. We
Yes.
write because it's inherent to who we are. We don't write to have the audience, but the audience exists, and the audience is better served for us sharing that voice. So most of the people that I'm working with, are writing just because it's something so true and honest to them, and that work is so invaluable. It's thrilling to see out in our community and to see other people reading these stories and connecting, making connections in our communities that just
Right.
they continue on and they build and they grow off one another.
Right. When you look at books like A Good Place to Come From, Morley
yes,
Targoff, reading that book, you recognize things in that. Like as a Northern Ontario Sault Ste. Marie height.
It's so exciting when you see something
It
you
is
can connect
exciting. Or
with.
Frank Patchy writes about different things. It's so exciting. I remember growing up as I have a degree in English Lit, and I read all these British literature and this and that and the other thing, and then I get to read this stuff that I can recognize. Oh, I know that bar, or I know the street,
You have an uncle like that.
yeah, or where that synagogue used to be, or this or that.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that sort of that hometown recognizable feel to it.
Absolutely. And not just the tangible aspects, but also the emotional aspects. Like we have a different life experience than those living in larger cities. I know you were in Ottawa as well, and I was in Toronto. Like it's still part of who we are. We shift into those different spaces, but who we are here is different from who we are there.
Absolutely.
And when we resonate with that in a book that we read, like, that is life altering to feel as a young child. Like, part of my goal is to be expanded into schools and to have different programs where we're doing workshops with youth and marginalized groups. We have a partnership opportunity with different community partners. That's a huge aspect for me, is that every project we do, we partner with community members, whether it be for Isolated Together, we gave 20% of all proceeds to the soup kitchen. Right now, with the new book, we're going to be working with Cafe for Good, so that's exciting. We look for those opportunities where we can lift one another up and keep that money that's created for jobs, for, you know, all of the supplies, everything is here within our communities, and we're building in all of these different ways. And the arts are so powerful.
Yes.
Isn't that exciting when the arts are powerful in a meaningful, tangible way?
Yes, and I say this to anybody that'll listen. If we could catch a teen who has big feelings and catch them and introduce them to art, any type. Any outlet.
Exactly.
Before they turn to something to self-medicate. Yes. I think instead of putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg, we're preemptively treating.
We're constantly saying, well, how do we access people? We don't have the resources for that. It's too expensive to do that. It's not.
No.
It takes time and it takes care.
Yep.
And I have loads of that. So
I love that. Now, you mentioned a new book.
Yes.
Okay, what is the new book?
The new book is called Home for the Holidays.
Okay.
We've just closed the call a couple of weeks ago, and responses have been sent out, and we are going to be doing our launch on Wednesday, December 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Cafe for Good.
And this is where the proceeds are going?
Yes.
So December 17th.
At from 4 to 7.
4 to 7.
Yeah,
Cafe
for Good. Cafe for Good.
Cafe for Good. Yeah, that's a different.
My apologies.
That's a different.
Well, they're
one.
connected.
Yeah.
Well, not physically, but you know.
Yeah. And this is another anthology.
It's another anthology. I love doing anthologies because it really builds that community feeling. It helps us to connect with one another. And I took a hiatus off for a couple of years to care for some family matters, and I've just gotten back into it now, come back into it this year, and this was the first project that I wanted to embrace. I wanted something, now that we're in this place, I mean, so many people are coming back here, like what you touched on earlier. So many people are making this their home. I've made it my home now. I've bought a house, I've settled in. And so I wanted to sort of touch on that and see where we're at, what our shared experiences are here. It's a theme that we talk about a lot around the holidays, but what does that actually mean for us here in the North? And we've got 15 local to the region authors, a couple of artists, and it's coming together really, really beautifully. So,
wow. And are you going to hand stitch?
Yep.
Oh, you're crazy. When I think about hand
I'm doing it all. I don't do the perfect bound ones hand stitching. Those ones are glued.
Okay.
But the hardcover versions I do hand stitch. I've got a bigger project coming out. We also, so we're open for open calls for anybody who wants to publish with us. I've been in talks at Authorpalooza and separately working with individuals in our community to do their own work. So whether it be a small project where, we're looking at zines or something like that, or we have a huge coffee table book coming out in March. I'm very excited about that one. It's a local women's advocate and creative. We haven't announced anything yet.
Okay, so we're going to have you back on in March.
Absolutely.
Okay. I've got my schedule right here.
Yeah. That one is really exciting.
Okay.
We've got a recipe book that is of a literary bent. We've got a series author. We've got all sorts of fun projects coming out for next year. And I'm looking at doing a playwriting series as well.
Wow.
So we're always open for any sort of creative projects, and because, again, we're intentionally small, we can publish books that aren't like other books. Your book doesn't have to fit the format of what, an online publisher would do. It doesn't have to be this size standardized book. It can be sewn together. It can be a wild shape. I can make them any way I want.
So that doesn't have to be rectangle.
No, not at all.
Wow.
I mean, don't make it too hard for me.
Right? I want
but
a
I love
17-pointed star.
We could talk. It might take some time, but with enough runway.
That's crazy. You know what I'm picturing? I'm picturing you, and I don't know what it looks like, but I'm picturing you at a loom.
Giant loom.
This loom.
I do have a loom.
Oh my God, of course you do. But do you make books on the loom?
Not as of yet.
Okay. That's crazy.
We can talk more.
Right.
Another exciting project that I have coming up that I also just finalized the details for today is starting in January. We're going to be doing a monthly writer circle. A big part of what I've been looking to do is to help encourage those writers that don't believe yet that they're writers, right? People who have a story but don't really know. And so we're going to be doing a book club. It's called Insight. INCITE, INSIGHT.
Okay.
Yeah. Insight.
Okay.
So that will be a monthly event happening again at Cafe for Good, and that will be the first Thursday of every month, starting from 5 till 7 p.m. And the exciting thing about that one is that we're going to be doing workshopping with those writers every month, and then I'm going to publish the book that month.
Very cool.
So if you come, if you want to be heard, if you want to dabble, you can be in a book.
Wow. I really think that this is going to be really appreciated in Northern Ontario. When we can share our experiences, and when I say we, as writers, and then as a reader, we can share those experiences with the writers.
Exactly.
And it's a common experience because, and I always say this, things that work in Sault Ste. Marie don't work in Toronto.
Definitely.
Things that don't work in Sault Ste. Marie work in Toronto. We are very unique
Yes.
market for anything.
Absolutely.
And so our perspective is completely different than what you'd see elsewhere.
But we support one another fiercely.
Yes.
When there is something here where it's, one person is doing this thing and then there's the cross-cultural, it just, we see it, we recognize that spark. Even if it's not something within our own niche, we still say yes, and we build on it, we come together like no other community I've been within. And it's so inspiring and it's heartwarming to be a part of.
Yeah. And the community is just getting bigger and bigger. Every
Absolutely.
book launch I go to,
there's so many opportunities
every book,
now. Art
publishing
show,
or anything like that,
everything.
it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger because people are appreciating.
Yes.
You know what? I don't have to go to Toronto to go to a museum or to an art show.
Exactly.
I can be right here in Sault Ste.
And it's
Marie.
more relevant to us here.
Absolutely.
It's more of the moment, and the publishing industry in Toronto and other larger areas, it's so slow. So you could submit your work and have it sitting in a waiting room, 2
years.
At 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's just to hear, no, thank you. We don't think it really fits. It's great, but it doesn't really fit with what we're doing this year.
Yeah.
Or our editorial calendar has something similar. So no, thanks, no. Maybe send us something next time,
Yeah.
And a lot of them, you can't even submit to other publishers or other people at the same time. So you're just sitting there waiting, hoping. By the time it even gets seen, it may not be relevant anymore. We've got people talking about current events. We've got people talking about things that are currently relevant. And for us to be able to pivot like that, you can only do that when you're small.
Right. Now what happens if you get big?
Well, I do have plans for growth, but I'm just getting relaunched here, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Right.
But ultimately, I can say I want to build it organically, and I want to build it with that community perspective. So looking to create job opportunities here in our city for our youth, for our people that are working in the arts and want to know that they actually have a financial prospect in the arts, that the arts are a viable avenue of career,
Right.
So I want to help train people to learn the art of bookmaking, to be involved in all aspects of the process, to expand across, but not so much out. You know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah, I get it. Would be really good. I'm just, of course my mind is working, and just doing some sort of a connection, networking, whatever with Soya, helping our youth.
Yes. We have a community partnership plan that I'm looking to find partners for this year. If anyone's interested in contacting us,
okay.
I have a whole packet prepared for if a community organization wanted to work together with us. Basically, they bring the idea, the expertise. They have the people within their clientele or their group who has these lived experiences, and I bring the editorial and the creative, that side of bookmaking to it, and I can work with them, workshop, and help them to find out how to put those ideas to paper, how to turn that into a literary thing, and see what it becomes, whatever form that might take, and then we work together and we publish the book.
I love that. That would be
and the
so
profits
great.
go into them.
Yes, that would be so great for, and again, I'm thinking Women in Crisis, I'm thinking Breton House, I'm thinking some of the stories are very cool.
Exactly. And their firsthand lived experiences.
Exactly.
And another way that we're growing too is I'm developing an editorial team. So we want to value own voices. We want to value people who feel represented by the people who are supporting them. I am just one woman. I have a lot of lived experiences, but they are just my niche lived experiences.
That's
so
right.
we want to always pair our writers with editors, with staff who have those shared lived experiences, because so often the nuance is lost in an editing process. So often, you know, they might feel insecure about what, you know, where they're coming from, and they might not have that expertise or voice to step up and say, well, it's not quite meant to be that way, but that's okay. You know? And so a lot of times our stories get washed, right? And so I really want to make sure that that doesn't happen, and I'm building that editorial team from that perspective as well.
I love it. Now, if anybody, if an author, prospective author wants to get a hold of you. An author. We'll say an author.
If you write something, you're an author.
Okay. So if an author or an organization or anybody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Well, we have our website. It's www.typeamedia.ca. Always Canadian. We're on Facebook. We're working to have a better social media presence. That's not my strong suit, but you can contact us there that way. You can reach me by email directly at ALEISHA, ALEISHA @typeamedia.ca, or at our editorial team at editorial@typeamedia.ca.
How'd you come up with the name Type A Media? Is it because you're Type A?
I'm a bit of Type A and I'm a bit of chaos. But yes, I'm also I collect and restore vintage typewriters, and I do a lot of my own writing on typewriters because I am that person. So actually in the logo, that typewriter is an actual photo that I've stylized of my first typewriter that my son gave me as a Christmas present when we moved back here.
Wow.
It wasn't my first typewriter, but my first one since moving back here. And so it's very close to my heart. But yeah, I'm the A in Type A, and ideally, I wanted that to be sort of the overarching editorial company, and we will be having different imprints for. I mean, we may have the Lit Mag coming up. We may have the Playwriting Press. I'd like to do books for children at some point in the future. You know, by children authors, working with school groups, things like that.
Love it.
So there's a lot of different possibilities, and so the media group itself is that overarching parent
umbrella.
Company.
Yeah,
exactly, the umbrella.
I love it. Oh wow, I'm excited for all these things. I can't imagine what you're feeling right now.
I try to stay focused.
Yeah,
I get a lot of ideas. I have a lot of plans.
Well, just right here we're talking. Like all I see is this tree with all these branches. Like, how do you keep track?
That's such an apt metaphor for
me.
I am definitely that tree
with a lot of branches.
All the branches.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And
thank you.
Before you leave the studio, we're gonna have to get another interview for March in the books, because I want to.
You'll definitely
talk about. Yeah, I'll definitely want to talk about what's coming up and what's new. Thank you so much, ALEISHA Parr from Type A Media.
Thank you. I've really loved being here.
Oh,
it's always wonderful talking with you.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been great. Type A Media. This is ALEISHA Parr, publisher, editor, bookmaker, loom worker,
typist.
Thanks, ALEISHA. You've been listening to The Book Cover. I'm Lisa Tucker on the Borderline, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover.
Hi, I'm ALEISHA Parr with Type A Media, publishing fresh, diverse voices from Northern Ontario and beyond. You can find us at www.typeamedia.ca, or you can join us on Facebook at Type A Media. You can purchase our books locally at the Sault Ste. Marie Museum.